You are listening to the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at pmpodcast.blogspot.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome to show number 35. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast for the 3rd of June 2006. Have you ever worked with someone on your project team who had no idea about project management? Was it slightly more difficult to make them understand that, following a process just might be a good thing? The interview with Frank Reynolds that you will hear in just a moment may have the answer for you. It is called the Certified Associate in Project Management, CAPM. But first, let's get going with a few announcements. And the first announcement is a question. Have you ever wondered how you could say thank you to the Project Management Podcast? Well, there are various ways that you can say thank you. And one of them is, why don't you buy your next book through us at Amazon? And to do that, if you know, hey, I want to buy a book, go to the podcast's website, pmpodcast.blogspot.com first, and on the left-hand side you will see a link, an Amazon affiliate link. Simply click on that link. It'll take you to Amazon, and Amazon then knows that you came to them through us. And what you buy will give us a little bit of a kickback to keep our expenses low here. This episode is sponsored by the University of California, Irvine. Better, faster, more. We hear this from our stakeholders every day. Do you have the tools to take on these demands? The University of California, Irvine Extension Project Management Certificate Program can give you the knowledge to get your projects done, on time, on budget. To learn more, visit www.extension.uci.edu/pm or call 949-824-7774. UCI Extension is a Project Management Global Charter member. For the last 3 weeks, I have been announcing a giveaway of Gerard Hill's book, The Complete Project Management Office Handbook. And we have 2 copies, and here are the winners. Winner number 1 is Rami Andari from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. And winner number 2 is Janice Ropers from Vernon Hills in the Illinois in the United States of America. As always, these winners were drawn by my wife following the highly supervised and very sophisticated method of printing out all your emails, tossing them into a bucket, and pulling out the 2 lucky names. Congratulations to you. If you are going to be in Athens, Greece on July the 1st, 2006, then consider going to the first International Athens Conference on Project Management Best Practices. This is a one-day seminar, and if you are a PMP, you can earn up to 8 PDUs by going there. Now let's take a look. Their preliminary agenda here, it starts at about 9:15 and goes until 6 p.m. in the evening. So this is really a packed day. They have 2 sets of parallel sessions going on that day, and they're going to be talking about how to be using RUP methodology for software development projects, creating the project-based company, assessing your tools in use for project management improvement, how project management will impact your organization. Then in the parallel sessions to that, they talk about certification of project managers, organizing global project teams, and about project management in finance and financial institutions. And then between 4:30 and 6 p.m., this really sounds like a good one, they're talking about rapid results and faster returns, the Athens International Airport case. So this to me looks like a very fun-filled and very interesting one-day seminar. And again, this is on July the 1st in Athens, Greece, and it's going to be held in the Hellenic American Union Conference Center. Have you ever wondered what the difference is between a project assistant, coordinator, leader, manager, project manager, senior project manager, program manager, portfolio manager, etc.? Well, look no further. Ganthead has just recently published what they call their Project Management Roles and Responsibilities Framework. For each of those roles, it gives you the responsibility, the authority, and the competency. And it does that by giving you just the generic view of things. You know that the responsibility of a project assistant is to collect non-disclosure agreements, for instance, and it goes up to where they talk about the portfolio manager and say that his competency has to be strong communication, negotiation, and influencing capabilities. So you have all the generic ones right there, and you can implement those for your own company because they give you also an area where you can then go and put in, well, the project coordinator in our company specifically takes on the following tasks. Now, this is a very good overview, and I have to admit, I really didn't know these distinctions that well myself. I will be using this in the future. Third and last helpful resource is in view of the interview that you're just going to hear. It's sometimes very difficult to find items on the PMI's website. It can be rather daunting. The website is huge and they have so much stuff on there, so how are you supposed to find things? Well, if you will be looking for the information about the Certified Associate in Project Management, then just click on this particular helpful resource and it'll get you right to the page where they talk about what it's all about, and most importantly at the bottom of this page you will find the CAPM Credential Handbook. It's a PDF document, and if you're really interested, that will give you the ins and outs on how to become a CAPM. And those were the project management events and helpful resources for this week. If you want to read up on any of these, simply go to pmpodcast.blogspot.com, where you will find links to every single item that I have just mentioned. And now let's get going with the main section of the show. I have met Frank Reynolds several years ago. He is a long-standing member of the PMIOC, my PMI chapter, and we've come across, our paths have crossed several times over the years. Frank has nearly 30 years of hands-on experience in project management, software and information systems applications development in a variety of industries, including banking, finance, manufacturing, and retail organizations. He has consulted for all phases of systems development and has conducted formal assessments of project management environments to identify specific actions necessary to improve organizations' process improvement efforts. Frank has also taught project management courses for the University of California Irvine Extension, today's sponsor, and designed and developed project management programs for AT&T, Lucent Technologies, McDonnell Douglas, and the Candle Corporation. And also, Frank lives very close to the beach. Here's the interview.
The Project Management Podcast Feature Interview.
Today, with Frank Reynolds, Project Management Consultant.
It is a beautiful day here in Southern California. I am in Huntington Beach, and as I was driving here to Frank Reynolds' home, More and more and more cars were parked on the sides of the streets. People are enjoying themselves here about half a mile at the most away from where I am at the moment, and probably plunging into the sea. And Frank and I were sitting here in his kitchen, and we'll be talking about the CAPM. Hello, Frank, and welcome to the show.
How you doing? Yes.
Frank, you're a long-standing member of the PMIOC, and why don't you tell us a little bit how you got interested in project management?
Well, after I got out of the service, I went to work for an insurance company, and as a programmer trainee. And very quickly, it became apparent to me that my work was very much shaped by the people who were called project managers. And I started paying close attention to them because they were a lot different from the supervisors I had both in the Army and in other jobs I had before I went in the service.
Have you enjoyed it so far?
Oh, very much so. As a matter of fact, my thesis in my Master's of Science was called Kludge Management, a Preliminary Descriptive Model. And some of the engineers out there might recognize that a kludge is a kind of a cobbled together thing, oftentimes as a result of a ill-conceived project that somehow works and you can't afford to throw it away.
Later on, you became a project management consultant and also a trainer. How long have you been training and consulting as a project manager?
I started my consulting practice in 1985 as an independent, and I pretty much one of my modalities was training as well as coaching and project turnaround and actually managing projects for various clients.
How many PMP classes have you trained and taught?
Gee, it's very numerous. As a matter of fact, my early big effort in training towards the PMP level was a series of engagements with Lucent Technologies. We had a very large program, and I taught in many of the courses in that program. And as the PMP became required by Lucent Technologies, essentially those became many courses that added up to a total of 34 contact days of instruction delivered to students over a 10 or 14 month period. And I taught probably 12 or 14 days worth of courses, but scattered around depending on when they needed me.
Now, you told me before we started the interview that you currently have a survey going on and that you would like the listeners to participate in this survey. Tell us a little bit about it before we move on to the main topic.
Yes, I'd like. It was driven by some of the experiences that I had with Lucent Technologies, where I developed a project participation workshop, and I came to be very closely involved with those people who work on projects, not merely the project managers. And as a result, when I started getting involved in the current version of CAPM, I wanted to know more about the variety of people who are working in the project management environment who are not project managers. And they include, by definition within the CAPM, among other things, students, including grad students and researchers. They also include people who are doing tasks within a project, some that might be called subject matter experts, could be project leaders, technical leaders, project facilitators, project administrators, a variety of different...
variety of people.
All those things that are essentially before you become a project manager of any serious responsibility. And so that's what I really got involved in thinking about how difficult it is to be a project participant, particularly juggling very often multiple assignments. Very often project participants will have 2, 3, 4, 5 concurrent assignments in projects, and they may also have some operational work in addition.
So what you would like the listeners to do is download the survey, fill it in, send it to you, and then at the end of the summer, when you have compiled all the data, each of the participants, I assume, will receive a copy of the results.
That's
right?
correct. What we've done is we identified about a dozen different descriptions of the kinds of work that go on in a project management environment. Some of those which I've already mentioned, plus, of course, a project manager, program manager, and project office manager, and things like that.
Right. Okay. We will be making this survey available through the website pmpodcast.blogspot.com. You can download it and you can fill it in and send it to Frank. Now, let's move on to the CAPM.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Now, the PMI offers 2 types of certifications. One is the PMP and one is the CAPM. Let's get down to the basics. What do these acronyms stand for and what is the big difference?
Well, the project management professional, which has been going on for, it's got to be 20 years or more, and has more than 100,000 holders throughout the world, It's basically based on taking a project manager who has a serious level of responsibility, typically in terms of an expensive project, a complex project involving serious end results for a client or a customer. In order to get the project management professional recognition, they are required to have 4,500 to 7,500 hours of project management participation. And this has to be ultimately documented and it's subject to audit by the PMI organization. In addition to that, they need 36 to 60 months of project management experience.
Quite enough.
Quite enough. So we're looking at a fairly heavily prepared individual, plus they're required to have a minimum of 35 hours of project management training delivered by a project management organization certified by PMI. It's what's called a registered educational provider. So it's a fairly constrained, fairly serious undertaking. And like yourself, I've taught in many versions of this course, both commercially and also working with volunteer activities like you and I both have done.
Mm-hmm. And the CAPM?
And the CAPM is relatively new. It had a sort of a false start back in 2002, and then in 2004 it was restarted again, and that's when it really got my attention because I think it makes some sense. In this case, the certified certified associate of project management is involved in having relatively little entry-level experience or knowledge. For instance, they're required to have a high school diploma or its equivalent, and they have one of two things: either 1,500 hours of experience in projects at almost any level, any activity, or 23 hours of formal education, but not as rigorously constrained as the registered educational provider education. In both cases, they're required to take exams. The exams for the PMP is a longer exam, and that exam has over 300 questions. Is that correct?
200.
200
Yes.
questions, right. 200 questions, and the CAPM has 150 questions. The other difference is that both of them make reference to the project management body of knowledge. And in the case of the PMP, somewhere between 60 to 70% of the exam questions are drawn strictly from the PMBOK, the Project Management Body of Knowledge, and the remainder can be drawn from other sources, which are oftentimes covered in the bibliography of the PMBOK. On the other hand, with the CAPM, the only source, the sole source, as it says in the documentation for preparation for the CAPM, is the PMBOK itself. That's not exactly correct, because they're expected to train on the topic of professional responsibility, on which the PMBOK remains silent.
Very silent.
So we have to do the same sort of trick that we do in preparing for the PMP exam. We have to bring in some external sources that we know, based on the kinds of questions been asked in the past, that we should give them the background in terms of that. The principal effort, I think, is drawn from the idea of having the agreement that you sign as a professional to be diligent and honorable and honest in discussing those issues.
Right. So let me see if I got this right. CAPM focuses almost 100% on the PMBOK. Entry level doesn't actually need a higher diploma. PMP, you have to have been a project manager in the past. You have to actually be able to show that you've been a project manager in the past. High entry level, lots of hours on projects, and the test is also more difficult. Is that pretty much sums it up?
And a difference I wanted to make was that the difference between the number of hours of project management activity and the number of months of project management responsibility, they're higher if you don't have a bachelor's level degree than if you have a bachelor's level degree. So you have a lower requirement both in hours and in months of responsibility.
Right. Now, let's say somebody wants to take the CAPM test. Once they are a CAPM, can they lead a project management? Can they lead a project, or do you have to be a PMP for that?
Well, if you look at projects are really scalable, from just tiny little one-person, a couple of weeks, couple of days even projects, to enormous projects like the Channel or something like that. So when it comes to expectation of what a project manager has to be able to know to lead a project, That's really not well defined. The only way you can probably see a definition of that is when you see a job described or offered by saying must have a project management professional. We're probably a PMP. You're probably looking at a fairly serious, ongoing, expensive project that needs very careful project attention. But the only way that project managers have gotten to that skill level typically has been able to work on a more informal basis with less skill, less knowledge, in smaller projects and simply accumulate experience.
Now, why should a company then invest, let's say, in sending their employees to CAPM training and have them take the exam as well?
The key, I think, to the CAPM, and this is why I'm very excited about this, is the idea is that too often people in technical professions and skill sets, they end up having the same 1 year of experience over and over and over again. They do one thing and then they go off and do it again, and they never really learn from it. The CAPM provides a project management conceptual context that allows people to learn from their experiences so that they can become more effective every time they get a new assignment. And that also allows them also to have expectations of their project managers and their project management environment about what they can get in terms of support to do their work.
Mm-hmm. That was actually the next question I was going to ask. Yeah. What are the differences in expectations that you would have between a CAPM and a PMP?
Well, CAPM, you're going to be expecting someone who's going to be able to contributing to the project in a number of interesting ways. Oftentimes you have a project participant who might be assigned to a project for its entire duration full-time. That's relatively rare in projects. Then you might have some people who might be associated with the project part-time, but for the duration of the project. And that happens as well. More often, project participants, especially with specialized skills and knowledge, might participate in an analysis phase or a design phase or construction phase, whatever it is the project's doing, and not having to contribute any other activities. So they might be full-time for just a little bit or part-time for a little bit and then go off to another project assignment.
Mm-hmm. Now, a question that just popped into my head. What's the official pronunciation? Is it CAPM or is it CAPM? Or does it matter?
I think it's so early in the recognition of the CAPM that I think I found it referred to as CAPM and the CAPM.
CAPM, both are okay. Yes. All right. Well,
right.
Well, the PMP, it's there's the PMP and the PIMP. So I don't know. What is the CAPM exam like?
Well, the CAPM exam is pretty much like the project management professional exam in that it's offered by Prometrics. It's done online. It's shorter, but has the same basic question structure, basically 4-choice, multiple choice exam questions. And it's basically looking for more of what's called referential knowledge rather than applicable knowledge.
So not the situational kind of questions that get with the PMP?
Excuse me, I didn't talk over you. I think that's probably a distinction, although having not set the exam, I don't know, and remember in terms of professional responsibility, I cannot debrief anybody very thoroughly in terms of exam. I can't say, did you have this kind of question or that kind of question? So it's kind of has arm's length. But the impression that I've gotten so far is that the kinds of questions will tend to be more knowledge-based and less experientially based.
Sort of what are the tools and techniques of communications planning, for instance. Okay.
And all of that knowledge, that kind of referential knowledge, is the kind of thing that's really vital to someone who's trying to take their experience and learn from it. And putting it in a context and seeing what to expect and what they can try.
Do we have any knowledge about how long it takes someone to prepare for the CAPM exam?
Well, we've had a few students, and we've had 2 that have passed it, and we haven't heard from the other ones yet. Sometimes they will wait a while before they take the exam. The 2 students we had were basically the preparation they did was they sat a 23-hour course offered by the firm that I work with, which is Outer Core, and that material was based on their own project management professional exam materials and text. Mm-hmm. And what we did is we took them through that material. We urged them to read the PMBOK, the Project Management Body of Knowledge, 3 times, and we meant diligently read, underlining it, highlighting it, whatever they could, thinking it through. And then and in whatever case, in the two students that we had that have passed, they actually worked as a little study group, and they sort of challenged one another and practiced lots of test questions. And essentially, the outer core text has on the order of 500 questions that you can prepare for, and have lots of little exams that you can create to be able to practice the questions. And plus, there are plenty of other sources. So a lot of times, it's really a prep course for taking the exam. My personal opinion is that a course that preps you only for the exam in project management isn't enough to get that contextual nature that we're talking about. That's why a good text is important, and that's why having some previous training other than the minimum 23 hours it probably pays off.
Now, I found it very difficult to find seminars like the ones that AutoCore offers, particularly focusing on CAPM. Let's say someone out there is a member of a PMI chapter, wants to take the CAPM or CAPM exam, but the chapter and the surrounding companies only offer PMP preparation workshops. Would it be possible for this person to take the PMP prep workshop and then go on and take the CAPM workshop? Would that work? Or
yes, but I have
yes and no.
I have two reservations. One reservation is that it's something I've learned, and perhaps you've seen by working with the PMBOK, is that there's this sort of fictional target for the book, for the PMBOK, which says that we've got a project manager who's probably full-time in this project, probably assigned to develop a project for a client with whom they work, and also being responsible for largely the project management effort, not the technical effort. That's an undefined target of the PMBOK. That ain't the person who's going to be taking the CAPM. Mm-hmm. That the person that the CAPM is be taking has a different perspective. They're looking at it from sort of the bottom or from the periphery, and they're saying, what is it that I'm doing to contribute to a project? So it becomes very hard for a project participant to really identify with the sort of high and mighty idea of what a project manager ought to be from their standpoint. So that's probably the first thing. The second thing is that there's, like we said before, there's about 30% of material that's not covered in the PMBOK it has to be covered in preparation for the PMP exam. That's overkill as far as the project participants are concerned. It's useful information, certainly, but it's not going to help them particularly, and they may have a hard time understanding where to put the emphasis.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how many CAPMs have been certified?
There's another kind of thing. I'm a happy member of the Project Management Institute, and God bless them, they're doing some wonderful things, but sometimes they're just kind of hard to get the information from, and this is one of the cases. The closest I could find, I spent this morning doing an additional research because I know you were going to ask this question, and what I found out was they've got this one little statement that says 1,000 people have sat the exam. They do not say how many passed the exam. And they also said that 2,000 have registered for the exam. The date of this information is in early 2005. No current information can I find since then. I do know that at least 4 people have registered for the exam that I know of, and 2 of them have passed it as a result of having taken the course I was involved in. So I knew there's somebody out there, but we don't have any count. And I would love to see on the PMI website a little ticker that shows both for PMPs and the CAPMs how many we got. We see it, and we see the count in our publications for PMPs every month, but I don't see anything for CAPM. Yeah.
Now the PMP exam. Once you're a PMP, every 3 years you have to submit 60 PDUs, professional development units, in order to maintain your certification. Is it something similar with the CAPM? Do you have to maintain your certification, or just go on forever? Or how does that work?
As a matter of fact, it's a 5-year certification. At the end of 5 years, you can retake the exam.
Oh, you have to retake the exam.
And currently there's no PDUs. There's also no relationship between your attainment of the CAPM and your preparation for PMP, other than the fact that you've studied the materials. And I suspect, and this is pure personal opinion, that a couple of things are probably going to happen as they come to figure out the power of the CAPM and how it can work together with the PMP, that that we might possibly use, and this is a pure guess on my part, we might actually have some PDUs associated with continuing to be certified with the CAPM, which is not true now. And the other thing, that there might be some sort of a recognition of having taken the CAPM as part of the qualification to taking PMP. I don't know exactly how, but my guess is it's still an evolving relationship, and that ultimately it'll be more closely coupled.
4,000 hours instead of 4,500 if you're CAPM.
Something like that could happen.
Lines.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would also think that maybe they made it non-renewable because they want people to move on. You've been a CAPM for 5 years now. Wouldn't it be time for you to move on and become a PMP?
Having read closely the materials in preparation for this, and also in preparation for my own marketing of this effort, I think that's possibly true, and that's where I think that possibly PMI is missing the boat. I think that for many people, appropriately, the CAPM is a terminal recognition. It just simply says we have people who are extraordinarily good professionals working in exotic and interesting technical areas, everything from pharmaceuticals to engineering to manufacturing, IT, all of that stuff, right? Telecommunication, all those areas. And it's important for them to participate in projects, but it's not important for them to manage projects, except for at the level what I'd call technical leads, which is sort of the equivalent of what used to be called a supervisor in a production shop. A technical lead sort of has a cluster of people, oftentimes working with or for them, that might be then sort of farmed out from that technical leads organization. And so in that case, many people I think would be fully satisfied and be very helped by a CAPM area. And it would be better for us as project managers to understand those people, because knowing what they can do for us is one of the biggest shortcomings in the project management profession right now. I don't think we pay as much attention to the people at the peripheries and reporting to us as we do at the top and those who are holding the cash.
And didn't the CIO magazine this year publish a survey of, I don't know how many CIOs, but they said the number one skill that they need and that they're going to hire in 2006 is project management skills.
Actually, it was in the top 3 of a list of 13.
It was in the top 3?
Right,
Okay.
the top 3. But what was remarkable, the fact that it was right up there with certain things you'd expect, like technical knowledge, but also not. It was way above some of the other kind of things you might expect, which is being able to develop a system. Develop a system was lower in that skill. Managing networks below project management skills. So there's a lot of things that were below that, and so yes, it was very striking that CIO was saying, yeah, project management is right up there in the top 3.
So in light of that, that means that someone who works in infrastructure who will never become a project manager because he's a techie, he's a hardware guy, he enjoys hardware, he wants to install hardware. Being on the project means that, hey, I'm a CAPM, I know what project management is all about, therefore I have the necessary skills that you're looking for in your company.
That's correct. And I think that's a real competitive advantage, because it says projects are odd and they're weird. And you can probably think back to the times when you first walked in a project. It's just, it's like a new job every 6 months, right? Or every 3 months. And how are they doing it here? And so it's very important, very useful for a technically skilled individual to be able to orient themselves to what it is they're doing, be able to understand why this process is the way it is, because oftentimes there are processes set up by project offices which may in fact vary within the company because they might have multiple project offices. So it's a way for them to orient and find their way around the organization and actually contribute.
And of course we also have to say this is not just true for IT. This is also true for engineering firms, for design firms, anything.
Without a doubt.
Just the CIO article just sprung into my head.
Right. And it was very striking that I had a chance to, in 2002 and 2003, to spend a fair amount of time in China working, teaching project management, but also doing some informal consulting based on what we'd covered. And in a lot of areas, we did things from engineering for fuel distribution systems, to telecommunications manufacturing, to switch over to a 10-digit telephone system in Guangzhou. All of these people were involved in projects, and all of them were requiring the contributions of lots of technical specialists who are really new to projects, and they really needed to understand that. And so that the project training oftentimes involved a lot of project participants for whom they had no expectation that they would be project managers.
Let's come back to the CAPM.
Okay.
I checked the online search engine, monster.com, and I found that I looked for how often CAPM or PMP appears, and I saw that only 43 job ads said CAPM required or preferred or something like that, but over 1,000 said PMP is required or preferred. Why do you think this difference is? Is the CAPM not well known?
Well, I think the key thing, it's not well known, and you just have to look back to the early days of the PMP. When the PMP first came out, it was not. We celebrated if we ever saw it listed as being a requirement, and it wasn't until companies like IBM, the then large AT&T, not the smaller one now, and other companies got behind the PMP and said, this is what we want to do. We want to have large. We want to be able to handle our projects. They're a competitive advantage for us, and we want to have the best project managers to be done. In addition, there were also the forces, because they were all global organizations who got behind it, that really pushed PMI into becoming a global organization, which was at the time was risky, and it's still a work in progress.
I haven't actually looked, but have you seen anything like a CAPM preparation workshop book? Like the one that AutoCore has just recently published? Is there a market for that available?
I just originally, again, I did the research this morning to see if I could find something like that. I can't find a text per se, and as a result, I'd already made some discussions with my colleagues at AutoCore that we're going to significantly adapt the text we have now to become a CAPM course. We're looking towards publishing it next year. And the issue there will be to help understand how we want to use the research that if your users or your listeners will participate in it, to be able to show those other kinds of project activities, which are not project management, but are in the project management environment, and to be able to help them understand how they can navigate their way through an organization and to be able to sort of sit the chairs, if you will, even if it never does result in them being a project manager whose requirement is that they have a PMP. There's a lot of project management that's going on way below the radar, which is being done by people who are just capable technical specialists who are able to juggle multiple activities and get the work done.
Yes. And until these books come out, how would you suggest that someone who says, you know what, this is interesting, I want to become a CAPM, I want to become certified, how should they go about studying?
Well, first of all, because the CAPM centers on the PMBOK, Product Management Body Knowledge, you need to read that very thoroughly. And at this point in time, just remind yourself that the project manager who they never actually describe, that they're really talking about there, is not the project participant that those individuals are right now. And as a result, they may find themselves sort of pushing back on stuff, saying, well, I never see this stuff working this way here, or they don't do it this way, or in my own company, etc. And they'll be kind of pushing back, and they'll let their ego sort of get in the way of looking at what this really means. Is what does this mean if I were to be a project participant? What could I really ask of my project manager in my organization to support me to do my job better and to be able to conduct projects in a more effective fashion?
Well, let's sum it all up. Who would you say should take the PMP exam? Who should take the CAPM exam, and why?
All right. Basically, and this is where the survey covers in, but basically I think that it's a project manager who is basically dedicated to project management. They go ahead and they need to have the PMP. Project or program managers need to have a PMP, certainly. People who are in head of project offices, certainly. And certain end users and counterpart project managers also need to have the PMP. That's really, and that's an important area, and it's important for us to continue to work in that area. On the other hand, when you're dealing with CAPM, we're talking about all those other individuals who are contributing to projects, oftentimes juggling multiple assignments, oftentimes having little supervisoral or personal management issues. And oftentimes personal management becomes an important issue in these things, so that they know how to manage themselves in the context of a project which is oftentimes much different, it has a different rhythm and pace than it would be in day-to-day operations.
All right. Are you ready to move on to my final 10 questions?
Yes. This isn't like the inside the actor's studio, though.
It is.
I don't have to swear, do I?
This is where I have gotten the idea from originally.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
That's the original idea.
But I'm not going to swear.
No, you don't have to give me your favorite word or your favorite swear word. No,
Okay.
That's not like it. Number 1, what is your favorite project?
Back in 1973, I was project manager for a thing called Focus Shelters for Mankind. And it was a gathering of urban design thinkers of all kinds, the kind of thing that Buckminster Fuller was invited to but couldn't attend. Many other people who had been involved in urban design, etc. Fascinating project, and I had a chance to run the project and make it come off. And there's nothing like running a conference that has to start on day certain and end day certain to really earn your chops.
Number 2, what project would you have liked to have managed?
I guess just for the stuff I watch on Discovery Channel, I guess I'd like to have managed a building that I happened to have been in, which was the Petronas Towers in KL. That was fascinating because they had one tower I think was built by a Korean company, and the other one was built by a Taiwanese company, and they actually had a race to see who could get up to the top, and I thought that would be a fascinating project.
Number 3, what is your favorite project management book?
I think this is consistent with my interest in project participations. There's a local guy here in Southern California named Paul Glenn, and he wrote a book called Leading Geeks, How to Manage and Lead People Who Deliver Technology. And he gets it as far as I'm concerned. And the kind of people he's talking about there are the kind of people that would be good CAPM candidates.
I think I remember him. Didn't he present something at
Several
the
times.
Dinner meeting for us at one point? Yes. Number 4, what is the topic of the next seminar that you are planning to attend?
Well, the PMI LA chapter San Gabriel Special Interest Group is doing the mind mapping for project managers, project management using both sides of your brain. And Barbara Ansel and Michelle Sekeli are doing that. And they're good friends of mine, and I'm really looking forward to that.
I just saw their presentation a week ago. Yeah, very good. Number 5, what is the best way to make a project fail?
Start a doomed project.
Would you like to elaborate a little on that?
I mean, there are just certain projects that don't need to start, and they get started anyway, and they're doomed from the beginning, and they just aren't ever going to get better.
Number 6, how do you like to celebrate a successful project?
Well, it's something with food and drink, obviously, and I make sure that the contributors to the project, those participants again that I'm worried about, many times the participants in a project that made it possible are no longer associated with the project. They're off to other assignments. And so I make a point of inviting back all those people, and I also make sure that they get the other tchotchkes, the club coats or the mugs or whatever it is. I want to make sure that they get recognized, even though they're no longer standing at the end of the project.
Number 7, in your projects, where do you focus most of your attention in order to be successful?
It's similar to that question about real estate. Instead of location, it's people, people, people.
Number 8, if you weren't a project manager, what would you like to be?
Well, I tried writing a novel once. That was kind of fun. I think I'd like to try that sometime.
Number 9, what is the one thing that a project manager cannot live without?
A clean conscience.
And number 10, finally, the oldest question in project management. What is more important in a project manager? Project management expertise or industry expertise?
Well, I believe that project managers specialize in ignorance reduction. Means that their specialty, whatever it was technically, doesn't count anymore. And so that they have to have the project management skills to help them understand how to navigate through stuff that people have never done before or haven't been done quite this way before or even never been done by this company before. Ignorance reduction, project management skills, top it.
Thank you very much for having been on the show, and thank you very much for the beer. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Ciao.
Ciao.
And that was Frank Reynolds, Project Management Consultant, speaking to me about the Certified Associate in Project Management and how it can benefit anyone who often works on projects but doesn't necessarily wish to enter the path of becoming a full-scale project manager. And that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. Next week, we have an interview about the PMI's e-business SIG for you. As always, you can find us on the web at pmpodcast.blogspot.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com. And when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And don't forget that we now brand new also have a listener feedback line, and you can reach us by calling the USA at 206-339-6520. And finally, we have this. There is a clear difference between project activity and just movement. With that, have you thought about your career in project management lately? There are more certifications out there than just the PMP and the CAPM, and one of them is right for you. And even if you already have a project management certification, where will you go from here? Until next time.